personas. I want to get into some of the takes that you guys have had. So we'll start with Kim. You were talking about personas, but also yesterday you had a thoughtful post, a long post on Twitter or X, in regards to the title, and I'll let you expand upon it because I think there's some good takes, and it's a good reminder, but also perspective to have. It was called, or at least the opening sentence was, "Half the market is being ignored. How Web3 games can tap into a huge under-marketed audience." So please expand upon that and share your thoughts there.
Yeah, I think when we think of gaming, a lot of people imagine, a dude in their grandma's basement playing a game, and that's just not realistic. That's not true. It's just a persona people made up. When we look at the stats and you look at the data, like 46% of gamers in the United States, women. If you look at what type of games they're playing, 69% are playing match 3 games, 69% are playing the family farming game, 42% are playing casual games. And I just think that we're continually marketing games as one big bucket, like the same type of people like Web3 gaming. And there's so much more that we can do here that we're not even touching the surface for what's possible. When I think of that, I think of like casual gaming, social gaming, in Decentraland, for example. Most people, they're coming in, they're not trying to go find a shooter game. They're trying to say, hey, my best friend now lives in Spain. I can't hang out with them every day because I live in Texas. Let's meet up and do something fun together. That social gaming perspective, you may not find them on crypto Twitter. They may be hanging out in Reddit. They may be doing pen pal stuff. They may be doing something completely different. And I think saying that we're gonna just do Web3 gaming on crypto Twitter to the same top gaming KOLs is just missing so many big opportunities out there. And I know that one of our top community members in Decentraland is a woman that started in 2018. And she said when she jumped in World, she was the only woman there for a very long time. And I know she is the person that brings in the most referrals. Women talk about it, more word of mouth. They're the top consumers. They're 80-something% of US consumption. So I think if you want to grow, start thinking about how do people talk about it, what do they do naturally, and what is the social element to your game?
Yeah, and before this, I was mentioning to you, Kim, about how I think of the concept of like, hey, we're going to onboard the next million, or if we were to go with a bigger number, onboard the next billion, but let's start a little bit more realistic for now. And the reality is, if you're going to onboard another million or even 100,000 or even 1,000 people, to a degree, they're not going to look like you. They're not going to look like you, us, me, whether it's geographically, socioeconomically, et cetera. There's going to be these concentric circles of like, hey, we have these overlapping similarities, but we're increasingly different over time, especially if it's going to be the next billion, right? And we'll get there.
I'll take 10.
10 billion?
No,
or 10 million?
Let's onboard the next 10.
10 people,
like,
10, 1
find
0.
your circle. If we all onboard 10 each time, like that's a great
K-factor,
start. There we
right?
go.
That's a K-factor of 10. That's insane. That would be like worldwide leading. But yeah, they're not going to look like you, whatever that might mean within your context. So I definitely resonate with that point, and it's a great reminder taking a step back. And switching gears, Jiho, you published an article, also articles, especially last year, weren't the most popular. They're becoming more popular now, and it was called the Web3 Gaming Growth Handbook. That was about 6 months ago, plus or minus, and I remember seeing that, and it started going viral, and you really laid out a lot of backstory and lessons learned from the years since, correct me if I'm wrong, but like 2018 when you were part of Axie Infinity in its early days in Sky Mavis, and now it's evolved much further. And you laid out several lessons and key sections through everything that you've gained in your experience. So we'd love for you to provide a TLDR of that for everyone here, especially if they aren't familiar with what we're talking about. But also, what would the 2025 second edition, like assuming that's a book, what would that look like in terms of some edits or appends?
So thanks for mentioning the book. I think it's gotten 700,000 views. So it's an honor. I meet people who don't know me but know about the book. So I think it's a testament. And if I were to summarize, in 0 to 1. Peter Thiel talks about how you don't need so many distribution channels. you just need one that truly works. And for me, people understand generally that in Web3, community is the proven distribution channel. But just saying that community is your marketing strategy isn't sufficient. And what I wanted to do was lay out a path towards systematic community design, right? People say you're a community builder. It's like, I like to think of myself as a community designer. And so in the book, I talk about how do you systematically do user interviews. That was something that I was taught. How do you systematically onboard creators and ensure that they're telling your story to the rest of the world in a way that does the best for your brand. And also, right, how do you systematically do airdrop campaigns or gifting campaigns, and how do you pick your first 100 users, 1,000 users, and what implications does that have for your project as time goes on? So yeah, please check out the book. And it really was my love letter to Web3 gaming growth. It's something that obviously has changed my life, and it's something that I obsess over. And I think it's something that is still very, very misunderstood. So it was really, the book is about how to do systematic community design and how we've approached it over the years. If I were to revisit, and maybe I should revisit after 8 months or so, I think the question that many people still have, myself included, is what are the likely supplemental channels? Okay, we know how to do systematic community design. What are the next channels that can help us add a couple of zeros, right? So we proved that systematic community design can get us to 10 million users, right? So the Ronin wallet has been downloaded 17 million times. So let's use that as the baseline. So we've actually onboarded millions. But how do we add a couple of zeros to that? What are the channels and hypotheses that we have for the future, whether that be finding some way to do paid ads or to onboard traditional creators? So I think that's the open question. I think that's the billion-dollar question. You literally create billions of dollars of value by solving this. And I believe I have some inklings at what the possible routes are, and that's basically what I would add to the book.
You're saving all the alpha. You're holding it tight.
Oh, we'll get some. Let's go digging.
If we get to 1 million views, I will update it.
All right, get your bot farms ready, folks. I am one of those 17 million Ronin wallets. I'm a proud, real human user for what it's worth. And I also like the term community designer. Funnily enough, what that reminds me of is I was at a wedding, a friend's wedding recently, and they didn't have a wedding planner, they had a wedding designer. And part of that's marketing, sure. And I'm not saying that from your context, but when you actually change the frame of reference, we're like, okay, I want to design a community. I don't want to just manage, in quotes, the community, which I'm sure designing involves managing, but it actually becomes a richer experience for even the person doing that community management or designing, right? If anything, it actually gives a little bit more agency in regards to like, okay, I need to manage the community, but I need to design it. What does that mean within, whether it's Ronin or Decentraland or something else? And it sort of gives this sort of empowering feel to it. So I like that term. All right,
Can I ask a question, though?
Yeah.
Jumping in. When you thought about community design, what is some of the skill set and experience of people that build really good communities?
This is something that we think about a lot on the Ronin side, because it's actually predictive of whether a game can succeed. And we think about, they need someone who's good at managing the community.
Right.
But to me, there is no such thing as community management. There is only leadership and lack of leadership. So if you wanted to bring someone who was not from Web3 to come in and get your Web3 project to the next level, what I would do is find someone who's a leader, who's a natural leader that people congregate to, people who listen to, and someone who's very talented at creating agreements, surprising and delighting people, and right, basically being able to get rid of this thing where you're just trying to manage expectations or do what's expected, and find someone who's able to create agreements on what people can and cannot expect from the project, and someone who people naturally gravitate to, right? And I believe that a leader will always be a better community manager than someone who is, I don't know, studied everything and knows Web3 super well, right? So I think that's like, if you're looking for people to help get your project to the next level, right? And you feel like, oh, none of the candidates are existing in our community or within the existing Web3 talent pool, that might be something to look for, right? Do you know people who have been democratically elected to something, right? Like, were they class president, right? Or they, president of their fraternity or sorority? These are the types of people that I think can do community design.
That's awesome. And I think reading between the lines of that, or maybe even repeating some of the points in a different way, that really delineates or sort of separates the community design versus community management, right? Again, taking a step back, community design sort of makes you think with more agency from a leadership perspective, taking the initiative. I think another key term that you mentioned was surprise and delight. So I used to work at Uber, and one of the key things that was mentioned to me, and I resonated with it, especially as I experienced it. And now it's, hey, rideshare or DoorDash or whatever, those are all commodities.
A lot of my teammates a lot of the people that I hire for my team come from Uber, right?
Yeah,
because it's like, you don't need to understand
ecosystems.
Web3 if you worked at Uber. You can come in and actually do well, in my
You understand
opinion.
economies, you understand marketplaces, you understand the complexity of competition, you understand cross-promotion, you understand how do you actually bring users from one ecosystem to another. Not to mention three-sided marketplaces are just monsters in of themselves. But from that Uber experience, when you ride an Uber, there's two surprise and delight moments, right? There's two magical moments. Again, now very commoditized. You're like, oh, just take me wherever. Let me be on my phone when I'm en route to the next event I eat Denver. Hopefully it costs $3 instead of $5 or something. One is you get a car right to you by pressing a button. The second one is you leave the car not having to do anything. So 10, 15 years ago, that was literally magic. And now, how do you create and design magic when it comes to community development, surprise and delight? Not the whole like, okay, we're gonna grind this out for TG in 9 months or something, but also in between, hey, we understand that there are some aspects of that that are important or valuable, but also in between, let's have fun. Right, and I think that's where the surprise and delight, and it's sort of sad that just like, let's have fun, can be considered surprise and delight, but it's actually very important.
But it's actually like, it's not that hard to just create.
I don't know, it's harder than
There are
it
parts
sounds.
that are hard, but it's like, it's not a hard concept.
Yes.
To just take people and say like, what could you do that could just make this more fun? And I think we're in such a space where everyone's thinking, how can we make it more advanced? How can we make it more innovative? How can we make it more technically difficult in some cases? And here it's like, how can we just make it simple and fun and joyous in a new way? And going back to that simplicity, we use surprise and delight internally all the time. I think like within gaming, you play because you're trying to have fun or achieve a goal, which is also fun. So there's so many opportunities to have those wow moments, those surprise moments, and just reminding the team working on the ground that like, if you can make someone in a game's day a little bit better, like they may refer you, they may talk about it on Twitter, and that's like the organic marketing that can come from the way you're designing the community or the game.
And that reminds me of another anecdote. I used to work in mobile gaming prior to Uber, and one of the games that was one of the flagship titles at the time, they always mentioned as sort of a marketing point or like a little fun fact, like, we even facilitated a wedding or like a marriage from our games. And it's just like, why?
That happened
is
on Ronin.
relevant?
That happened on Ronin.
It happened in
And
Decentraland,
Decentraland,
too.
yeah, it's actually funny. We called it the first metaverse wedding, and we're wondering, like, is anyone gonna, if nobody challenges this, it's correct.
We had a
So yeah,
Taco Bell sponsor.
congratulations, Cloud White and Lauda, and yeah, shout out to Pixels.
I love that.
And that's surprising to life, especially for those two people. You literally changed their lives, and it doesn't get better than that, right? In terms of just the fulfillment and like, this is why I do what I do day in, day out, blood, sweat, and tears. So that's really, really cool.
It's amazing what the real friendships that form behind the avatar, behind the controller. All of that is like real connections happening. So even though you're building on a screen, it's like the human element, the weddings, the flying. We had 100 people fly to Argentina in May to like all meet each other for the first time. And it was the coolest experience just watching like that in real life hug. We have hug emotes in Decentraland and they're really cool, but nothing beats like an in real life hug. And so just taking those moments and like bringing reality to them.
It is also, right, like at least in some cases, right, it's like proof that, like there are relationships between men and women that happen in this community, right? So also speaking to your earlier point about how, right, like having a gender balance, some sort of gender balance can be helpful. So.
That may be the real growth hack in Web3 gaming.
Dating in
I don't
Web3
know.
gaming.
I mean, yeah, we used to have a saying, right? Get an Axie, get a girlfriend, and
We are having the first Decentraland prom in May, so get a date, get an outfit.
Yeah, folks, follow up with Kim, because I would be curious to see the numbers behind that, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
that could
It should
actually
be
be
fun.
very interesting. And that also segues into retention. So feel free to disagree, but in my opinion, I think in Web3 gaming or in crypto in general and Web3, the general growth or an acquisition funnel has fundamentally changed. I personally believe, and I think there are plenty of examples to back up this maybe wrong or biased take, is that acquisition or awareness, it has, I don't know if you could quantify it, maybe it depends on a case-by-case basis, sure, but it has significantly widened, right? The hardest part, and maybe the width, quote unquote, of that part of the funnel hasn't necessarily changed, but on a percentage basis, right? If you're talking about percentage, it is a lot lower because those initial top of funnel layers have widened 5, 10x for a lot of, we don't have to go into detail, but fairly obvious reasons. It is a lot harder. So how are you guys thinking about retention, whether it's, key breakthrough to the fundamental approach, or maybe from last cycle to this cycle?
well, all right, sorry, I'm just gonna go. I think that's one of the advantages that games have, is that compared to meme coins, compared to things like DeFi and trading, retention is much higher for games. This is illustrated by some of the data that was just uncovered by 1KX. And Ronin has a 17.5x higher 30-day retention than Solana. It's also about 5x higher than Base's retention. And we know this as well because, all right, so Axie grew to around 3 million users last cycle. We're able to retain around 250,000 of those players throughout the bear, which, right, is still incredibly, people will say, like Web3 gaming, right, just died or during the bear or whatever, but actually when you look at the pure math, that's not true. Like actually gaming had crazy retention relative to the rest of the market. It was one of the only places within crypto that was still percolating and doing things during the bear. So,
Method.
and why is this? Well, Web3 games at least are experiences that facilitate, right, economic and social relationships between people all over the world. And something like that, right, is not necessarily as dependent on the market as something like meme coins. So I think that's why our thesis is that gaming is the most durable sector to build a foundation on top of, because you're at least going to have some users that are having fun, hanging out with each other during the bear, which is something that's needed in crypto, right? Where, I mean, we're literally seeing, right, what's happening to Solana now, right? Where it's like, okay, no more memes. It's like, it's going straight to zero potentially, right? Whereas with us, at least there is some baseline level of engagement, because when I was one of the original players of World of Warcraft, right? And I could never quit. It was very much hard for me to quit World of Warcraft, because if I quit, I was gonna lose all my friends, right? And we're living in an increasingly lonely world, for better or for worse. And that is an element of what's being created within Web3 gaming, and I do believe that gives a advantage when it comes to retention.
100%. I think people are playing games because they want to do something together, to achieve something, to compete, to enjoy a moment in time. And when we're in the bear, the play to earn, the farm to earn, the I'm coming in for a quest and then I'm leaving by as soon as I do the step one, that number drops. So yeah, the number drops, but the engagement we see in Decentraland is like the people that are coming in are staying longer, they're doing more, they're building more. The average engagement time is per session 38 minutes. So they're coming in and like doing a whole experience. They're coming to a concert, they're meeting their friends for something. And so seeing the people that want to come in and are building and putting in the work and making those connections, that they're like, it's Friday night, I don't want to go out, the world is lonely, but my friends are online, and those are real friends. It's not just like my online friends, we joke about this, like online friends, real friends. They're real friends, they're just not physically next to you, but you're doing real things, having real emotions, real connections, and good market, bad market, those friendships are still there. And so I totally agree with you. I think gaming is one of the best options for serving some of these loneliness issues that we're seeing across the world.
So I want to highlight from both of you, respectively, metrics that you called out. So Jiho, you mentioned 250K DAU, was it correct? Or is that MAU?
That's basically where like what was retained, or 250,000 monthly actives
MAUs.
in the Axie community during the depths of the bear market.
Right? It's like, hey, screw farming. Like, I'm gonna cry into my pillow, right? So 250K MAU at the depths of the bear, and then Kim, you mentioned 38 minutes per session, right? So just want to call out those metrics, what they were looking at, and what they're defining as success. Hey, we all love vanity metrics, right? And it's helpful in certain use cases and environments, but also more metrics that actually matter in different ways and within certain contexts. So we're at time. I just want to ask one more question, and this will be a little bit more fun. But outside of your respective ecosystems, what is your favorite DApp or crypto Web3 app, gaming or non-gaming, just favorite, or maybe like you're just checking in on it every day or doing whatever the thing is, and why?
So this is probably pretty trendy right now, but I have to say that we've been clients, institutional clients of Kaido for about like 9 months now, right? So way before the hype. But yeah, I've been checking my apps every day, and I think that they've managed to build something really interesting when it comes to gamifying the game of awareness and mindshare within crypto. It's pretty addictive. I've been playing around with it since I think December 23rd or something like that. It's also good to like onboard our community into. So yeah, I think they've done a really great job, and that's something that I interact with kind of outside of, a Ronin application on a daily basis. I have to also, shout out a game that's outside the Ronin ecosystem. There's a game called The Beacon, which is actually on Treasure, which I really like, and I've been a fan of, even though we've never really done anything with them yet or thus far.
Interesting. I know there's an event with Treasure at Elastic House, so I don't know if you're going to stop by, or I'll put in a good word, if anything. How about that? I also do have founding heroes from Beacon, so.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Also got a small. We'll see what happens there. And Kim?
I agree. I mean, we're marketers, so like watching the apps and how that is playing out has been a ton of fun. I'm checking it regularly. I'm not like changing my content for it, which I know some people are, some people aren't. I don't have the time to be doing that, but it's a lot of fun. It's fun to watch it. It's fun to see a different group of people getting rewarded for some activity in this ecosystem, so I've been having a lot of fun with that. I'm really liking basic social stuff, so I'm wearing chipped nails. Shout out to Winnie, who's making these, which are NFC chips, and you could do a lot of different stuff with it, which is a lot of fun. Not as Web3 friendly, but is very prevalent. I saw a lot of them today so far, and I also am really excited about the ETH brand hack that's kind of going on Joker Race, and how everyone is kind of getting together, coming up with some new marketing incentives, doing it on-chain, voting, putting some money in the pot, and kind of splitting that across the board. I think ways where people can come together, vote, do something socially, connect, share, is kind of where, in my opinion, the future of Web3 can grow.
All great call outs. So Joke Race, Chipped, The Beacon, and Kaido. All notable projects that I've been building for a while, and definitely recommend checking them out. All right, that concludes it. Thank you so much for the insights. Hope you guys also learned something, and thank you.
Thank you.